everybody to get some advantage out of that.
Give us a sense of India's growing economic power in the world. You talk about it being a tiger. That's the metaphor for it. Tell Americans, I mean, this is huge. We've got some of the greatest corporate minds are coming from India. What do you have, more billionaires now, more paper billionaires than Japan or China?
India has more billionaires in the top 10 list of Fortune magazine than any country in the world, including the US, because 4 of the world's top 10 richest people are Indians. The problem is so are 250 million of the world's poorest people, and we can't afford to forget that. The economy has been growing, and lots of success stories. Indian companies have bought up Jaguar and Land Rover and British Steel, and they're making inroads across the world in a number of important areas. But at the same time, the challenges are enormous. We have a huge population of people who live way beyond the global poverty line, which is $1 a day. The Indian poverty line in the rural areas is just 35 cents a day. So we're talking people who even above the poverty line are living in conditions that no poor American person would be prepared to tolerate. So things are still tough. There's a huge challenge. I would hope that Americans would not begrudge India the 1 or 2 million jobs it can create through outsourcing, because it has to create 500 million jobs for people to pull themselves out of poverty. But it's an economy that's on the move. It's a democracy that's extremely friendly to America. It's a country which has a lot to offer in today's day and age in terms of its own soft power, from the popular movies of Bollywood to yoga to Indian cuisine and Indian restaurants now springing up all the way across the US. I think you're seeing there's a lot there that Americans can like about India. It's not a country that needs to be seen as a threat.
How worried should we be about the conflict between India and Pakistan, which has been going on as long as I've been alive and a lot longer? The nuclear threat.
Well, I don't know whether Americans need to worry. I think Indians need to worry, because unfortunately we have on our borders a state that has been ruled by military juntas for the majority of its democratic, of its free existence, but has not been a democracy for most of the time. It also has been in the grip of Islamist fundamentalist movements, with an intelligence agency, the ISI, that has now been revealed even by the US to have been complicit in the bombing of the Indian embassy in Kabul by a suicide bomber. In other words, the Taliban, which was once a wholly owned subsidiary of the ISI, is again reviving thanks to Pakistan intelligence. We have Al-Qaeda on the borders of Pakistan and Afghanistan, and we have a democratically elected government at last after many years of military rule, but which is very vulnerable, which in many ways seems to be tottering from day to day in its attempts to survive in the face of all of these threats and the ever-present threat of military rule. So we do worry very much in India. I'm not that worried about a nuclear bomb, because frankly the two countries are not like the US and the Soviet Union with oceans and land masses separating them. They're next door to each other. A nuclear attack, and India has refused. India has already forsworn any right to first use of nuclear weapons. It'll only ever use nuclear weapons in self-defense. I just can't believe that any Pakistani ruler would be crazy enough to use nuclear weapons. So we needn't worry about nuclear war, but I think we do need to worry about instability, about terrorism coming out of there at a time when there is real reason to worry about the safety of people in that region, in Afghanistan, in India, and in Pakistan.
This has been a long-standing suspicion that Osama bin Laden is somewhere in the Pakistani tribal territories.
Very few people believe otherwise, and of course he has not been easy to find. Part of the problem is there was a feeling that Pakistan under General Musharraf was simultaneously encouraging, nurturing and shielding the very extremists against whom they said they were the sole bulwark. So they were saying, you better support us and give us money. Pakistan got $11 billion in American aid and lots of debts written off as well. Support us, finance us, because otherwise it's going to be Islamist fundamentalism. But who's financing the Islamist fundamentalism? And very often it appeared to be agencies of the Pakistani government. And this is a great problem. This double game has gone on long enough, but how the world can stop it, no one knows.
Should we be worried about tensions between China and India on your border?
I'm personally not complacent about that. I think that the flare-up in Tibet earlier this year has reminded China of its long-standing border dispute with India, which is of course the Tibetan border with India, and its concerns about the Dalai Lama, who's had refuge in India along with 110,000 Tibetan refugees who found a home and a life in India in the last 50 years. And because of that, I do worry that there could still be a new flare-up of tensions along the India-China border once the magic of the Olympics has subsided.
Right now, you're focused on trying to provide capital, private capital, and help people back in India now that you're out of the diplomatic arena. What are some of the big projects? You mentioned one, training people, but what would you like to see done with that equity, with that capital that you're involved with?
Well, I mean, I would like to see things that frankly employ people. You talked about outsourcing to manufacturing. We're doing not enough manufacturing at all in India. And that is a real problem because it's only manufacturing that can employ large numbers of people, particularly semi-skilled people, because the educated people can get soaked up by the IT firms and the call centers and all of that. But we need to put lots more money into manufacturing. That's China realized that 20 years earlier. Part of our problem is indeed that our democracy has lots of laws that protect the jobs of those who already have jobs and don't do enough to facilitate investment from outside to create new jobs for people who don't have any. And those are things that need to change. I'm increasingly concerned that to make a difference in India, one has to get engaged in the policy arena and not just in the private sector, because it's where policies are made by politicians that ultimately will dictate the kinds of opportunities that people will have.
So you're going to run for office?
Well, I haven't made any decisions, but let me put it this way. I'm not running for anything right now, but I'm not running from anything either. It's certainly an option one would have to consider. National elections are due next year, so I have a bit of time. But if I do or I don't, and I may decide not to at the end, the fact still is that it is important, it seems to me, that one continues to express a strong voice on issues of public policy. And that's what my writing is aimed at in the final analysis.
Would you be starting at the top? Is that what you'd be looking at?
No one starts at the top, really, especially not in a parliamentary system. But you know, you go off and find a district or a constituency, as we call it in India, and you run. But again, you know, our parliament is 543 seats, and that means each person is representing 2 million people. This is not door-to-door campaigning. This is a huge challenge. And I just don't know if it's going to happen, or I'm not even sure necessarily that the people of my sort of background have been away from the country as long as I have can expect to walk in and be welcomed by the voters. But certainly, as I said, either through active engagement or more likely through writing and public advocacy, one has to work in the policy arena as well. But getting into manufacturing is certainly an important area that I would encourage more and more investors from India and elsewhere to come in and do.
Would it be a dream for you to lead your country? Practical or not, would it be a dream?
Look, I don't think there's in any democracy any thinking person who doesn't harbor in some tiny corner of their minds the desire to make a real difference by leading a country, because in democracies you grow up believing that you might be able to. And that's been one of the great strengths of America. It is one of the great strengths of India. But you also, if you want to get into any serious public activity, have to be a realist. And I think I have a fairly realistic awareness of my own limitations and possibilities.
Are you optimistic about some of the struggles that we're seeing as a diplomat? Are you ultimately optimistic?
Yes, I am optimistic because I genuinely believe that even though human beings' inhumanity to other human beings will not disappear so quickly, the truth still is that, in fact, yesterday's problems are not today's problems. And that if we can continue doing our very best, today's problems don't need to be problems tomorrow. There'll be new problems, but the problems we have around us can and should be solved.
That's all the time we have. You've been listening to Indian writer and former UN diplomat Shashi Tharoor. I spoke with him at the Sun Valley Writers Conference this past summer. Of the recent Mumbai attacks, Tharoor writes, "Bombs and bullets alone cannot destroy India." But he warns what can wreck that country is revenge. Quote, "A change in the spirit of its people, away from the pluralism and coexistence that has been our greatest strength." For Dialogue, I'm Marcia Franklin.
Presentation of Dialogue on Idaho Public Television is made possible through the generous support of the Laura Moore Cunningham Foundation, committed to fulfilling the Moore family's legacy of building the great state of Idaho. To order a copy of this program from Idaho Public Television, call our toll-free number or visit us on the World Wide Web